Hi everybody, this is the video for topic 5, factoring when your leading coefficient is not equal to 1. If we look at the first example, we can see that there is a GCF that we can take out, and that GCF is 2, so we can factor a 2 out of everything. So just like in topic 1, we're going to see 2 times what gives us 2x squared, 2 times what is 4x, 2 times what is negative 16. So we already know how to do that, how to factor out a GCF. So now that we've done it, we have now, inside the parentheses, a leading coefficient of 1. So we can play the game. What multiplies to negative 8 but adds to positive 2? So we automatically have x and x because they have to multiply to x squared. So the two numbers that multiply to negative 8 and add to 2 are positive 4 and negative 2. So we factored out a 2 out of everything first, and then we were able to use the factoring you already know how to do. In our second example, we don't have a GCF that we can take out. So this is what we'd call the box method. And this is what we use when our A value, so our leading coefficient, our A value is not equal to 1. So we start out by making a box, kind of like Punnett squares from science. The first thing we do is put our x squared term in the top left, and then put our constant term in the bottom right. Now what we do is we multiply those two coefficients, so 2 times 1, and then we write that number on the side. This is now the number we find two numbers that multiply to 2 and add to our middle term of 3. So the only two numbers that multiply to 2 are 1 and 2, so those are what we're going to have to use. They also add to 3. So we're going to use those two numbers as coefficients of our linear term, our x term, in the box. So we have a 1x and then a 2x. This step does not matter which one you put where. So I could have put a 2x in the top right, 1x in the bottom left. That part does not matter. Now, from the bottom row, I am going to take the GCF from that bottom row, so 2x and 1. So the only thing they have in common is 1. From the top row, I take out the GCF, 2x squared and 1x. So they both have an x in common. Now I need to factor up. So if I look at the left column, they each have a 2 and they each have at least one x. So I can take out a 2x. And then my top right and my bottom right, they each have a 1 in common. So it's always good at this point to go back and check to make sure they multiply back out, because we've done box method multiplication. So 2x times x gives me 2x squared, x times 1 is 1x, 2x times 1 is 2x, 1 times 1 is 1, so it works out. So now all we have to do is write it as a product of two binomials. The first binomial, you can either do the top or the side, it doesn't matter, so it would be 2x plus 1 times x plus 1. So it doesn't matter the order you write it, as long as you keep the top row together and then the left side together. We're going to do another example on the next slide. So this second example, again, we don't have a GCF, so we're going to have to use our box method for factoring. So let's start by making our box. And we, again, put our x squared term in the top left, our constant term in the bottom right. We multiply those two numbers together, so 3 times negative 4 gives me negative 12. I'm looking for factors of negative 12, so numbers that multiply to negative 12, but add to positive 4. So I'm just going to start listing my factors. So I have 1 and negative 12, negative 1, 12, 2, negative 6, but negative 2 and positive 6 are my winning pair. They multiply to negative 12 and add to positive 4. So once again, it doesn't matter which one I put where, as long as I make sure I attach them with x's. So I'll put negative 2x in the bottom left, 6x in the top right. Again, you can swap those two and still get the same answer. So now we're going to do our GCF factoring. So let's start with the bottom row. Negative 2x and negative 4. So they're both divisible by 2. But I'm actually going to pull out a negative 2 because you take the sign of the box closest to it. So what I mean by that is if this line right here has a negative close to it, you have to pull out a negative. So if we look up top here, it's positive 3, so we're going to pull out a positive. Up here, positive 6, so we're going to pull out a positive. So it doesn't, so it really matters what sign is in the box closest to it. So if we look at our top row, 3x squared and 6x, we have 3 and 6 are both divisible by 3, and we also have an x that we can take out. Now we'll look at factoring up to the top. So 3x squared and negative 2x, the only thing they have in common is an x. And then 6x and negative 4 are both divisible by 2. So again, this is where it's really important to check to make sure they multiply back out correctly if you were to do box method multiplication. These do, so we can write them as a product of two binomials. That concludes the video. Please make sure that you do both the U tries at the bottom of this page.